How's it going, everyone? It is Andre Williams, and over here we talk stocks and we focus on one thing. Always protect your profits. And today we're going to be talking about Mullen, Lucid, ChargePoint, and NIO. As far as for Mullen, they ended up having some great news that came out today. We saw a strong run up in the stock, and then they got hit with selling pressure. If you don't know about the news, they ended up getting a purchase agreement for 600 of their EV cargo vans. But we also have to take into consideration there's a lot of volatility and a lot of news coming into the EV sector. I will talk about it in this video, and I want to remind you, if you're new to this channel, we have timestamps down below inside the description. We're going to be going over the institutional ownership, we're going to be going over the charts, and we're also going to be looking at the short interest information. So let's get into those videos right now. So we're going to take a look at the chart from Mullen. Let's see how it performed on the day. So it ended up closing at $1.22, being up 4.27%. On the low, it tested $1.18, and then on the high, testing $1.40. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you can see we traded at 134 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 66.031 million shares. So we had well above the average in regards to volume, and then we also had a green day on the stock. Now, when we take a look at our chart, which is the hourly chart, here's some things I want to bring to your attention. If you remember what we spoke about in the last video, we wanted Mullen to be able to have some price action above $1.52. If it was able to do that, it can make that move to 170. And since we did have a strong catalyst today, we ended up seeing a high at 140. So what does this mean? Mullen still looks good. And the reason why I'm saying that, you can see that we have used support here right at that 200 EMA, right at 116. And then we could see it going up higher. Now you want to see Mullen holding support around 120. If it can hold support at 120, not only do we form another higher low, we can go back to seeing if we can test near that 140 level. But of course, we would see some resistance right here around 134. So please add that to your notes. If we're able to hold 134, then that's where I can see us going to 152 and then testing those previous highs where we got to the $1.70 range. And another thing that I want to bring to your attention, remember when I keep telling you guys, there's a great opportunity in Mullen when it's trading between 95 cents and as well as $1. Congratulations to those that took advantage of that opportunity and were able to make some money on this run up. So we're going to take a look at the recent short interest information from Mullen. So the off exchange short volume ratio is at 50.50%, and then for the off exchange short volume, it is just over 24.92 million shares. Scrolling down on the page, the short shares availability is at 400, updated 26 minutes ago. And then for the short borrow fee rate, it is at 30.45%. When we take a look at the history of the short volume, we can see for the close of the 7th, it was at 50.02. And then for the close of the 8th being at 50.50. And then taking a look at the short interest percentage of the float being at 11.37%, Mullen does have short squeeze potential. So we're going to take a look at the chart for Lucid. Let's see how it performed on the day. So it ended up closing at $18.53, being down 7.30%. On the low, it tested $18.50, and then on the high, testing $20.02. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you can see we traded at 11.591 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 15.642 million shares. So we had below average volume on the day, and we also seen a pullback in the stock. When we take a look at our chart, which is the hourly chart, I want to bring some things to your attention. If you remember what we covered in the last video, we talked about, and I've said this many times, that $20 is a psychological area for this play. So what did we end up doing? We ended up selling off and coming all the way down to testing lows at $18.50. Not shocking, because this was an area where we had resistance last week. So that's why paying attention to these charts is very important. If we decide to sell off further, then I'm going to be expecting us to actually test support right here at $18. And of course, that's where I'm looking for a bounce. That's where we've seen that in the past recently, especially back here on July the 7th. But if we don't end up getting that, then of course, that's where you can see, considering the run up that we had last week, we can come down to testing $17.50. If you're looking for a move back to the upside now, since we did have a high at $20 and now we're at $18.58, of course, I would be keeping a very close eye on $18.80. If we can get a break above $18.80, that's what I want to see if we can make a move going to here around the $19.30 range. You could see this was also a support area as well, so revisiting these levels would not be out of the question whatsoever, but again, we just need to have some strength, some buying coming into the market to turn it back around to even get there. So overall, keep an eye on those levels to the upside and as well as for the downside. So we're going to take a look at the recent institutional ownership and short interest information for Lucid. Scrolling down on the page, green rows indicate new positions while red rows indicate closed positions. So taking a look at recent filings here, we have Foresight Capital Management Advisors that close out their position, and we also have Red Point Investment Management Pty Limited that closed out their position as well, but this was back on July the 8th. So that's all we have so far. Now when we take a look at the short interest, the off-exchange short volume ratio is at 45.83%, and then for the off-exchange short volume, it is just over 3.43 million shares. Scrolling down on the page, the short shares availability is at 700,000, updated 28 minutes ago, and then for the short borrow fee rate, it is at 20.34%. When we take a look at the history of the short volume, we can see for the close of the 7th, it was at 51.65, and then for the close of the 8th, being at 45.83. So when we take a look at the short interest percentage of the float being at 22.58%, Lucid does have short squeeze potential. So we're going to take a look at the chart for NIO. Let's see how it performed on the day. So it ended up closing at $20.57, being down 8.98%. On the low, it tested $20.50, and then on the high, testing $21.74. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you can see we traded at 54.509 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 60.074 million shares. So we had below average volume on the day, and we also seen a pullback in the stock. Now when we take a look at our chart, we're actually using the 1 hour chart. I want you guys to pay attention to the key levels that I'm going to point out. So we ended up seeing a low at $20.50, and this is a very strong area of significance. When we see the range we have here from $20.50 and taking into consideration $20.65. If we take a look at what has happened in the past, this has been an area for NIO to actually bounce off of. We've seen this happen all the way back here on July the 6th, which was last week. We also do see that support was tested around the same area on July the 5th, and then we also see all the way back here on June the 29th it tested this area and it ended up bouncing. So could we have another bounce that's going to be coming in the near term for NIO? This could potentially happen, but the one thing that you want to keep an eye on, if it decides to pull back and go below $20.26, that's where we can see it testing right at $20, and then you'd want to see what it would do from there. You guys can let me know if you want to update on that. But in regards to the resistance, the high of the day was at 21.74. No surprises there. We can see there have been multiple rejections at this level, and that's why when we sold off to this next area of support, you want to take note of that. So if you want to see a bullish move from NIO, it needs to get above 21.74 or just get above $22, and then you can see it has a big time gap that needs to be filled right here at $22.63 to fill in that gap. And if it's able to make another move and hold above this level, that's where you want to see it get to 23.30, and then of course you can see the next area of resistance being right here around 24.10. So it's very interesting. Keep an eye on it. See if it decides to bounce off of this level like it's done in the past. But if it doesn't do so, then I know for a fact it will be testing $20. Now let's move on. So we're going to take a look at the institutional ownership and short interest information for NIO. Scrolling down on the page, green rows indicate new positions, while red rows indicate closed positions. So when we take a look at the recent filings, we don't really have many. We have Avondale Wealth Management that closed out their position. We have CTC LLC that purchased just over 1.11 million shares. Nice. And then when we take a look at for July the 5th filing, we have Future Financial Wealth Management LLC that closed out their position. Now, when we take a look at the short interest, the off-exchange short volume ratio is at 59.57%, and then for the off-exchange short volume, it is just over 14.13 million shares. Scrolling down on the page, the short shares availability is at 10 million, updated 2 minutes ago, and then for the short borrow fee rate, it is at 0.33%. When we take a look at the history of the short volume, we can see for the close of the 7th, it was at 52.65, and then for the close of the 8th, being at 59.57. So it has gone up a bit, and then when we take a look at the short interest percentage of the float being at 5.08%, NIO doesn't have short squeeze potential. So we're going to take a look at the chart for ChargePoint. Let's see how it performed on the day. So it ended up closing at $11.94, being down 10.76%. On the low, it tested $11.93, and then on the high, testing $13.28. When we take a look at the volume stats on the day, you can see we traded at 11.429 million shares, and the average volume over 10 trading days is at 9.468 million shares. So we had above average volume on the day, but we dealt with a good amount of selling pressure. Now, when we take a look at our chart, we're actually using the 1 hour chart. So if you guys remember, we still have all the lines from the previous video that I did on ChargePoint, and I was saying it was very important for this stock to hold $13. If it can't hold $13, don't be surprised if it pulls back down to $12. And it got to a low today at $11.93. But this is a very significant area, and I'm going to show you the reason why. We have bounced off this level. So we bounced off of this level back here on July the 5th, which was last week. And we also bounced off this level back on June the 14th. So this is an area that I would be watching very keenly. If we decide to break through the low of the day at 11.93, then you want to see if support can hold at 11.69. If not, then the next area of support that you want to see from ChargePoint, yes, you already guessed it, it's going to be around $11.35. So that's why you want to keep a very close eye on the downside if it continues to sell off. As far as where the resistance is, we had that high of the day at 13.28, so we need price action above this level. If we can get above 13.28 and be able to reclaim the 200 EMA at 13.46, it can get interesting, especially if ChargePoint can use it as support. But do know, if we get to this level, the next area of resistance to keep an eye on will be right here around $14.21. And if it's extremely bullish or we see momentum coming into the EV sector, don't be shocked if ChargePoint tries to make that move to 16. So overall, pay attention to those levels and you could take advantage of the opportunities to the downside or the upside. So we're going to take a look at the recent institutional ownership and short interest information for ChargePoint. Scrolling down on the page, green rows indicate new positions, while red rows indicate closed positions. So we can see we have Gradient Investment LLC that purchased 2 shares. Really? They got to record that. Anyways, and then we can see for July the 8th, we have Foundations Investment Advisors LLC that purchased 12,650 shares. Now, when we take a look at the short interest, the off-exchange short volume ratio is at 66.66%, and then for the off-exchange short volume, it is just over 4.07 million shares. Scrolling down on the page, the short shares availability is at 85,000, updated just now, and then for the short borrow fee rate, it is at 4.60%. When we take a look at the history of the short volume, you can see for the close of the 7th, it was at 59.60, and then for the close of the 8th being at 66.66. So it has gone up significantly, and then taking a look at the short interest percentage of the float being at 18.92%, ChargePoint does have short squeeze potential. Now let's move on. So overall for the EV sector, there's definitely was a good amount of selling pressure on the day. We did have a pullback in the overall market, but Mullen was able to finish green due to the catalyst that it had. As far as the purchase agreement for their 600 EV cargo vans, it was great news for investors and as well as for anyone that was looking to trade it. If you guys remember, since I've been covering it, I was saying that buyers step in at between 95 cents and as well as $1. So if you were able to actually add to your position or maybe buy some shares at those levels, you'd have been able to actually bank in some serious profits. You guys know, always protect your profits. Now, many people are going to be asking me, does Mullen have a lot more upside? Yes, I can see some upside for this play, especially if they end up bringing out some more catalysts, but you have to keep in mind, so far, looking at the daily chart, it is showing a pretty strong trend. We're seeing a continuation of higher lows and as well as higher highs, but you want to see this continue, but it is going to be a volatile week. I'll talk about that in a second. As far as for Lucid, it ended up selling off quite a bit. We also see that Tesla sold off quite a bit, so that's why it was no strange surprise. We also are aware for Lucid that $20 is a psychological area. So the moment it gets to 20 bucks, it tends to get hit with a good amount of selling pressure. So for anyone that was able to take advantage of some puts by using my videos to get an idea of those key levels, congratulations to you. As far as for ChargePoint, again, the overall sector, it sold off, but they also did release some news in regard to bringing in new management to their leadership team. And as far as NIO and what's going down inside China, they are going back into lockdown. lockdown. So of course, many Chinese stocks were impacted by this. And additionally, we had Rivian that came out saying that they're going to be laying off 5% of their workforce. Again, a lot of stuff are going down inside of the EV sector, and that's why I wasn't surprised we ended up seeing a lot of weakness. And you want to make sure that you're adding this to your notes, especially if you're going to be trading these plays or whether you are investing in these plays. This is very crucial. So as far as going into tomorrow, if we have some buying pressure and some momentum coming in, keep an eye on those levels that I talk about when we do the chart analysis. This is very important. You want to make sure that you have a game plan, whether you're an investor or whether you are a trader. You can't forget that we are in a bear market. We also have CPI data that's going to be coming out on July the 13th, which is Wednesday. So that's going to add to even more volatility inside of these markets. I already said, if the numbers come out red hot, then expect the market to fall off a cliff. And all these stocks that I just talked about are going to be falling down with it. So being aware and keeping your ears to the street is very important. I also want to remind you guys, I ended up putting out a video yesterday in regards to the weekly watch list. And I talked about some option contracts that you want to watch as far as for Monday. So for all the people that were able to take advantage of some puts, I want to send you out a big time congratulations. Again, I want to make sure I do this every week for you guys so you guys can have a good idea of some solid plays that are out there inside of the market. And if you haven't done so already, please download the 5 strategies to trade options like a pro. If you want to get into options and you want to make sure that you increase your chances of success, download it. A lot of people have been telling me, you know what, it was well put together and they have learned a lot from it. So go ahead, check that out. And if you want to join us inside of the Discord, you could also find those links down inside the description as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I can't wait to see how these stocks perform for tomorrow and as well as for the rest of the week. We'll talk soon.